Chapter 35 of the Eight Oared Victors by Lester Chadwick. This is recorded to celebrate the 8th anniversary of LibriVox. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. "Here they come, boys! Get ready!" yelled Bean Perkins, wildly waving his megaphone. "Here they come!" "Oh, wow!" shouted Joe Jackson. "For the love of Caesar, tell us who's ahead." "It's hard to see from here, but I think—" "Oh, who cares what you think?" interrupted a lad. "Don't give us any false information." "Get ready, boys!" cried Bean again. "The college cheer when they get opposite the old boathouse, and then the 'Conquer or Die' song. We've got to pull 'em on." All was excitement. 100 voices mingled in expressions of hopes and fears. The rival college cheers blended into one riotous conglomeration of sound. The 3 shells were sweeping on to victory. Victory for just one. "Oh, Madge!" cried Ruth. "I daren't look. Here, you take the field glasses and tell me who's ahead." Her own college colors slipped from her dress unheeded, and there was disclosed the tiny knot of Randall's maroon and yellow. "Ruth!" expostulated Mabel, as she pointed to the traitorous hues. "I don't care," replied Ruth, as her hand went to where her restored brooch was at her throat. "Who's ahead?" demanded Helen Newton, as Madge peered through the glasses. "Fairview!" "What?" "She is! She is! Oh, girls, Fairview is going to win!" Who is second?" demanded Mabel. "Randall!" came the reply. Then there was silence. The girls looked at one another. What they thought, who shall say? On came the 3 shells. The cheers increased. There was a din of horns and rattles. The band played madly. No one knew what the tune was, and cared less. "Steady, all!" cried Jerry, as he noticed a tendency to quicken. "Steady, all!" On came the Randall shell. Just a little to her rear was Boxer Hall, struggling desperately and with breaking hearts to offset the disadvantage of overtraining and overconfidence. For that is just what it amounted to. It looked hopeless for them now. As for Fairview, she had maintained the lead she had unexpectedly gained over Randall, and the eager, almost bursting hearts in the boat hoped that the coeducational college could row it out onto the end. But there was no disguising the fact to themselves that they were rowing against such a rival as they had never before met. For a moment after Jerry had given the word to increase the stroke, his chums thought that he would keep them on that for 100 yards or so, and then hit up the pace still faster. But he did not. Instead, coolly and calmly, he glanced critically at the Fairview shell, and kept on at the same rate. "Hang it all, why doesn't he give the word to spurt?" thought Frank, as his broad back rose and fell to the measured rhythm. "We can do it." But Jerry was a wise little coxswain. Not for nothing had he spied out the course, so that he knew every foot of it, and by marks previously noted he could tell exactly how far they were from the finish mark. Nearer and nearer to it came the 8-oared shells. Boxer Hall was struggling hard to pull up, but for once she had met her match. 2, in fact, for it was easy now to see that the race, barring accidents, lay between Randall and Fairview. "And oh, may we win!" prayed Tom and his chums. And they could not understand why Jerry would not put them at their limit. True, their hearts were pumping at an abnormal rate, their muscles strained as they never had before, and their breath came labored and went out gaspingly. And then, when Coxswain Jerry, with his eager eyes, saw a certain old gnarled tree on the river bank, and when he had noted that Fairview had added another stroke per minute, then, and not until then, did he give the word. He had slid down into his seat, feeling the tiller lines as a horseman feels with the reins the mouth of his pet racer. Gently, as if the shell were some delicate machine, did Jerry guide her on course. Now the time had come. Up he sat, like one electrified. Through the megaphone strapped to his mouth came the words, "Row, boys! Row as you have never rowed before! Put all you can to the stroke! I call for 35! Give it to 'em! Give it to 'em!" It seemed as though the Randall shell was suddenly galvanized into action. Reaching forward over their toes, 8 sturdy backs bent for the stroke. Then it came. A pull that seemed to lift the frail shell from the water, a pull that strained on the outriggers, a pull that made the stout oars creak and bend, a stroke that sent the water swirling aft in rings, circles, whirlpools, and a smother of foam, a stroke that told. "Row! Row!" screamed Jerry. Daring another glance, Frank, at stroke, saw the Fairview boat seemingly at a standstill. But it was not so. It was that Randall had shot up to her. From the shores, from the boathouse, from the other craft, came a riot of sound. Shouts, yells, the tooting of horns, the clatter of rattles. There was a veritable flower garden of waving colors. The shrill voices of the girls mingled with the hoarser shouts of the men and boys. Whistles blew, and dogs barked to add to the din. "Row! Row!" Jerry fairly screamed. "Pick it up, boys!" pleaded the Fairview coxswain. He had not thought that his rivals had the spurt in them. "Can't you do it? Can't you get up to them?" begged Pinky Davenport of his Boxer lads, and there were unashamed tears in his eyes as he made his last appeal. But Boxer was all in. "Now, boys, now!" shouted Jerry. "This is your last chance. 100 yards more, only 300 feet. Row! Row! We must win!" "Don't let them pass us," came from the Fairview coxswain. "A few strokes, only a few more." The boats were even. Pandemonium had now broken loose. The band was drowned out by shouts. Ruth found herself hammering Madge on the back and shouting she knew not what in her ear. Madge was crying, she did not know why. As for the Randall lads, they were mere machines. There was no thought left in them. They saw nothing, but each man in front of him viewed his foreman's back. Frank could not see the face of Jackson, but he could hear his rasping voice. "Row! Row!" How Frank heaved, how he dug at the giving water at the end of his blade as though he would tear it from the river and fling it aloft in a rainbow arc. And how Bricktop Molly took up the stroke, his honest Irish face wet with sweat, his red hair plastered down on his forehead. Back and forth he bent. After him came Holly Cross, picking up the stroke masterfully. And then Kidlings, good old Kidlings, with something of the fire of his name in his sturdy muscles. Then Hausenlager, all the desire for horseplay gone from him. Then Sid, who had been shifted back to number 3 almost at the last moment. Then Phil, then Tom. And how they rowed! Surely the ancient gods, surely even Hercules at his 12 labors, never toiled more titanically than these 8 rowers. No galley slave, chained to the oar, with the vessel on fire above him, with the shrieks of the dying in his ears, the stench of Greek fire in his nostrils, ever rowed more desperately. "Row! Row!" screamed Jerry. "Row! Row!" echoed Roger Barnes. The finish line was but 100 feet away. Slowly, oh, so slowly, did the Randall boat creep up on her rival. Now she was past. Another electric thrill went through Jerry. "Row! Row!" he screamed, and his voice was hoarse. His hands, tense and gripped, were clasped so tightly on the tiller ropes that afterwards they had to loosen them for him. The muscles had gone dead, but he steered with the skill of a veteran. It grew black before Tom's eyes. He felt that his lungs were bursting. Frank knew that if he dipped the oar in the water again he would not have the strength to pull it out. But somehow he did. And then, with one last spurt, a spurt that seemed to wrench the very roots of their hearts, a pull that seemed to tear their very muscles loose, the lads in the Randall shell sent their boat over the finish line a winner. A winner by half a length. A winner. They were the 8-oared victors. And as they realized this, as it came to them, their eyes that saw not lighted up, their faces, seamed and lined with the contracted muscles, broke into smiles. And then Tom toppled over on his oar, and Frank fell weakly back on Malloy. "Easy there, me lad, easy," panted Bricktop. "It's all over. You collapsed at the right minute. Oh, wow, but I'm thirsty." Jerry Jackson was struggling with the tiller lines wound around his nerveless hands. Ready chums loosened them and helped him from the shell onto a boat, the crew having recovered sufficiently to put their broad blades out into the water to steady the shell. And then, following the hush that came after the hysterical outburst which greeted the winners, came floating over the heads of the great throng, "Aut vincere! Aut more!" But Randall had conquered, though she had nearly died. End of The 8-Oared Victors, by Leslie Chadwick. Read by Todd.